pursue out of confession for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Okay, I'll give you a line and you give it back to me. Namo tassa Qian Wang Jie Nan Zhao Yu, 我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义. I'll give you a line and you give it back. Here we go. Ready? Supreme and wondrous Dharma. Your turn. Supreme and wondrous Dharma. Subtle and profound. Rarely is encountered. Even in a million eons. But now we see and hear it, and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Wonderful. How are we doing? How's our time lag? Was that acceptable, Jinchuan Shi? Is the quality okay? Good. All right. I'm going to edit my name and email, so I'm coming to you from Bernogan, Queensland here. So welcome to our Avatamsaka Sutra Dharma lecture this evening, our Sutra lecture. I'm sitting in Gold Coast Dharma Realm here in Bernogan, Queensland, southeastern Queensland, Australia, surrounded by good-hearted folks from everywhere from China to Taiwan to Malaysia to as far away as Sydney, if you can imagine such a thing. And seeing all of you there in the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery. So we're going to be looking into the Flower Garland Sutra, the Huayan Jing. And all that noise is broadcast all over the world. Congratulations. This is a wonderful experience. Technology makes something happen here that may be unprecedented. Although we tried it last year and met all the bugs and crossed over all the bugs one by one, still it's always a miracle because we're not only watching a sutra lecture while I'm sitting in Australia being broadcast to Berkeley, California, here on Sunday, December 24th on Christmas Eve, but also the webcast of this lecture that folks in Berkeley are watching on the screen is also going out over YouTube. We have people who are babysitting here in Queensland watching me on YouTube as you all are watching me on the screen, as well as we've got a dozen live flesh and blood folks hearing the Sutra lecture here in Australia as well. So how wonderful is that? With all of those pieces stacked up on top of each other, let's proceed. What I'm going to do is put on the screen the text that we're going to be looking at today. And let's see here. It's right here. This is the Flower Garland Sutra by Yin, and you'll see the Chinese title, Namo Ta Fang Wang Fo Hua Yin Jing. I'm going to use my wooden fish and my bell and recite it 7 times in Chinese. So if you all don't know it, you can lip sync, all right? So here we go. Namo Ta Fang Wang Fo Hua Yin Jing. Yen Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa Namo Ta Fang Wang Fo Hua Yin Jing. Yen Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa Namo Ta Fang Wang Fo Hua Yin Jing. Yen Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa Namo Ta Fang Wang Fo Hua Yin Jing. Yen Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa Namo Ta Fang Wang Fo Hua Yin Jing. Yen Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa Namo Ta Fang Wang Fo Hua Yin Jing. Yen Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa Namo Ta Fang Wang Fo Hua Yin Jing. Yen Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Please, if you will, turn in your sutra text to pages 22 and 23. Now, here in the room, that's the only page we have. So we're all set with that. 22 and 23. And, okay. I have a slow connection. Would I like to stop sharing my webcam? No, please hide other webcams to improve meeting performance. I think we'll go with it. There we go.
Dharma, if your bandwidth isn't enough for the webcam, we might need to turn that off.
This portion.
This audio, it's affecting the audio.
Yes. Okay, turn off mine or, yeah, okay, 1 second. It could be that they're watching us eating the bandwidth. Yeah, if they don't mind coming in and sweating with the rest of us. We're going to make an adjustment on this end too.
Okay.
We have somebody watching in the building.
Yeah, that will definitely affect the
bandwidth. Sufficient amount of our bandwidth. But.
We see you as a ghost image
moving
around.
Now, have things, does that improve things?
Yes, it's a lot better now.
Are things better now, by any chance?
Yes, you look like a human being again.
Suddenly much better. I look like you. Don't be fooled. Oh, no, no, no. It is all illusion. So, okay, that's better. All right, so we're looking at the passage of text on page 22 that goes, Fozi Pusa Fu Qi Zhiming, disciples of the Buddha, this Bodhisattva further brings up the light of wisdom. We're going to read just that 3 lines of Chinese text, and then go over and read the English corresponding section. So first of all, let me sneeze. Can I do that? Now, what language was that sneeze in? Buddhist Chinese. Here we go. Ready? I think the thing to do, instead of trying to correlate call and response with the lag time of the internet, is to do it together. We'll do it in unison. Ready? Here we go. 佛子 此菩萨复其智明，教化众生。所谓善知众生身识别，善分别众生身，善观察所生处，随其所应而为现身，教化成熟。Good, thank you. Now moving over to page 24 now. It's disciples of the Buddha, right? Everybody follow with me? Let's read it together. Here we go. Disciples of the Buddha, this bodhisattva further brings up the light of wisdom to teach living beings. That is to say, he is skillful at knowing the differences among the bodies of sentient beings. He is skillful at distinguishing among their bodies. He is skillful at contemplating their birthplaces. He appears to them as is appropriate to teach them and bring them to maturity. Good. All right. Now, what is going on here in our text? We're looking at a sutra spoken by the Buddha 1,500 years ago, and it's called the flower garland, the Avatamsaka, the Huaiyan Jing in Chinese. The Japanese know it as the Kegon Kyo. And this is a sutra that talks about the bodhisattva path. What is a bodhisattva? How do you behave like one? How do you think and speak like one? This is the sutra that answers those questions. And it's big. It's a large sutra among Mahayana texts. And our teacher, Master Shenhua, our founder, took 9 years to explain it. And that's lecturing every single night. He spent 90 minutes of every night explaining this text. And of course, he wasn't, there was no time limit. He wasn't trying to go fast. He wasn't trying to go slow. He was being thorough. But he lectured pieces of it while he was traveling in Taiwan. He lectured sections of it at the City of 10,000 Buddhas. And it was mostly explained in Gold Mountain Monastery in San Francisco, California. So during those 9 years, he covered first the preface of the sutra and then every single word in the text. We have been doing the same thing here in Berkeley and Finnegan, here in Queensland, but only for certain chapters. We didn't do as he did, from Thus I Have Heard all the way to the end. We're currently explaining one big chapter out of 40. This whole sutra takes 40 chapters. And 40 chapters, they go in Chinese by scrolls, right? Because they used to be on actual scroll of bark or leaves or cloth. If we took the 40 chapters and how many scrolls? This is the 80 scroll Avatamsaka Sutra, and translated it with text only, it would probably be something like 100 volumes of medium-sized, print. So big sutra, right? Big sutra. We've got one of the chapters, one of the 40, one of the bigger ones, not the biggest one of the 40, but it's among the top 5 biggest chapters. And it's called the 10 stages, the 10 grounds, the 10 phases, the 10 levels. The Sanskrit name is Dashabhumi. The Chinese name is the Shirdi Pin. Chapter on the 10 stages of the Bodhisattva's progress. And while the whole sutra identifies what a Bodhisattva is, this particular chapter is kind of the express lane. This is the clearest exposition of the Bodhisattva path from stage 1. We used to call it the 10 grounds. We're thinking that's not the best way to translate D. So from ground 1, stage 1, all the way to the stage 10 is talking about a Bodhisattva's progress. We're on ground 8. We're almost done. We've really come a long way since first time 5.5 years ago when we said, I recall saying, boy, I remember saying to myself once, if you ever have an opportunity to explain the 10 grounds chapter, basically you've died and been reborn in heaven. You can quit after that. You're done, And now, my goodness, we're almost done. So quick, get another chapter, make another vow, or it's all over for you. So, but you can die happy, right? Because you had this chance to explain the 10 grounds chapter, the 10 stages. It's a wonderful chapter. And as we've been going on this chapter, something has come clear that we've been saying over and over again, and somehow it stays fresh every time we say it, that while a Buddhist sutra is a sacred text, right? It's a scripture. Think Bible, think Holy Quran, think Gospels or Torah, think Vedas, like that. It is in that category. It's not, it fits in no description of sacred text that I was familiar with growing up as a Methodist. If we had to characterize what is this text like, it's a combination of science textbook, Merck's manual for how to cure what's wrong with your body when it misfunctions, and it's a how-to manual. Think of it as a PDF that comes with your bed from IKEA, right? Your job is to take the pieces spread out on the floor and turn it into a bed. And you have to have this downloadable doc in order to read it. The Avatamsaka Sutra is like a doc file for attaining the samadhi and wisdom of a bodhisattva. It's a how-to text. It's instructions. It's very practical, pragmatic text. Do this, the bodhisattva does this and gets this result, right? It's not holy in that regard. It's not anything. At no point in the sutra does the Buddha ever say, you should believe me. This is true, you should believe it. It's much too busy describing how a bodhisattva responds to the cries and in need of sentient beings who run amok and need help, right? It's very much interested in the recognizable psychological reactions to people's troubles. It's a how-to curing the troubles of living beings, and at the same time waking up your mind to the reality of no self and the reality of deeper connections with all sentient creatures. That's why I say it's, in that sense, it's very sacred. I mean, it's a holy book, no doubt, but it's much more like a science text, kind of like a biology textbook almost. This is how people are made. This is how bodhisattvas come out of people and can respond. So very amazing in that way. And we just, we're discovering it very slowly, bit by bit. And while I might mention that here in the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery, we've got 2 languages going on. We've got a Vietnamese translation up in the balcony, and the rest of us are struggling with my English. But the text was, when Master Hua explained it, it was in Chinese. And people do not know, fewer people know about the Avatamsaka Sutra's identity, because why? Unless you read classical Chinese, classical Buddhist Chinese, you wouldn't have touched it. You wouldn't have read it. You wouldn't know what it was. Now, you could read the Sanskrit original, but I suppose there are even fewer people who handle Sanskrit. So we're among the first, following our teacher, to say, this book has value for us. Let's put the effort into looking at these Chinese characters that had been in print for 2 millennia and figure out what it says. Okay? So more to the point after that is, if we think we know what it says, what does it mean? How does this work for us? We put all this work into understanding what the words say, but does it apply to our lives? Can we make sense out of it in the year 2017, especially on Christmas Eve here in 2017? So anyway, I've got to get my jokes out of the way first. So This is now the Australian edition of the Avatamsaka Sutra lecture. And Jin Chuan, do I still look like a pixelated ghost in my Cobra PD hat?
As long as you don't move your head too fast, you're okay.
Don't move my head too fast.
Yeah, it's very crisp.
There. Clear. Good. Okay. Yeah. So, well, as long as my jokes don't get distorted, that's probably good. All right. What is happening to our bodhisattva on the 8th ground? Well, he has now completely, he or she, mind you, this is a gender neutral text. You can supply whatever pronoun you prefer. It suits equally, it fits equally, because what's happening in this chapter is the bodhisattva has transformed his or her consciousness completely to wisdom. We're discovering here what happens when a human, recognizably human person, like me, like you, like your uncle, like your child, a human being completely merges with the practices of Dharma. And let's translate that. This recognizable person applied to his or her body and mind the teachings of the Buddha, and a change happened. You could say constant changes happened. Things changed. In a word, consciousness changed to wisdom, and wisdom started to function. And boy, does the word wisdom fail to communicate in English what it means in terms of the Avatamsaka Sutra. This state of wisdom is kind of like the keys to a wonderland. It's kind of like getting a door key to Disneyland and saying, you know, you have limitless tickets, go take every ride you want. That's a funky analogy, but you get the point. Human consciousness, when transformed into wisdom, does things that perhaps only the Avatamsaka Sutra fully describe. What's going on in the 8th ground has to do with bodies right now, and that's plural, bodies, right? The Bodhisattva has now so thoroughly deconstructed what used to be my ego, me in the middle, everybody else outside me, right? I'm in the center of the world. I can tell because I know I'm inside and you're all outside. I'm in the middle. Everything else revolves around me, right? The Bodhisattva has so thoroughly rebuilt, unbuilt and rebuilt, deconstructed and then rebuilt that vision of self, that the function now is multiple bodies. And he or she can make appear multiple bodies as needed to teach and to help people in need. How about that? So, okay, right away, if you are a credulous person, if you need proof, this is gonna, probably you wanna sign out right now and go wrap up those last Christmas presents and get them under the tree before tomorrow morning, right? So, but if you've ever had a sense of wondering how people can change before your eyes, and wondering how is that possible? Like, for example, let's say for women, the young man who caught your heart back in college or on that vacation, and he just looked like the answer to your dreams, and you married him, and 10 years later, he's changed. Doesn't look as romantic as he once did, you know. Has something to do with the laundry, or maybe it's the snoring, or that look that he gives you, you know. And yet it's the same guy. What happened? And all it takes for him to suddenly transform back is for him to smile and to be kind and to bring the roses out from behind his back and say, "Happy birthday, honey." And suddenly, you know, oh, look at that. I recognize you. You're that same guy I married before, you know. Where did you go in the last 10 years? You know. So it's funny how right within one body, we can perceive different personalities, different characters, different colors and lights and energies. Okay, so we don't even have to go into couples. What about me the last time I got angry? My goodness. I had an encounter at border force in immigration at the Brisbane airport, just coming in to Australia not even a week ago. And I was mistaken for a drug runner. And I had to stand there while the federal police came to investigate whether I was in fact a drug runner. And they didn't care that I was a monk. The guy, it was already 1 a.m., not even 12 midnight, and I was the last person in arrivals, and they had to stand there while they went through every single tiny little packet of anything that I had to check and see whether there was illicit substances there. And when I was filling out the form for occupation, I said clergy. He says, "What's that?" He says, "Spell it." clergy. I mean, I could have said monk, I guess, but I thought clergy was that's what I usually say, religious individual or something like that. And so I felt my temperature rising, and I was sweating under my armpits, and I knew that I didn't have any illicit substances. I had a lot of tea with me. I brought a lot of oolong tea, and that's licit, that's not illicit. But when I was coming off the ramp on the plane, I was so happy, so high to be back in Australia, where I've immigrated. And half an hour later, I was thinking, this is humiliating. Why am I being interrogated as a drug runner? Maybe I should tell them I've been, no, don't even bother. Just answer any question you're asked. Don't volunteer anything, be polite. And it was hard to keep my cool and not change temperature. And what's it called? In Buddhism, we call that no samadhi, right? I had no control because I got heated. I got overheated at that sense of humiliation at being asked questions that I felt were so obvious, and very funny how all it takes is a little bit of difference, and suddenly, just the attitude of the hardworking immigration agent, they were doing their job, certainly, and I guess I do look pretty weird here in Queensland. There aren't that many, Mahayana bhikshus here to compare, but we've had enough come through. Anyway, so tick those boxes on your card very carefully. Don't take it as a joke when you cross a national border. So my point is, it doesn't take much to bring out a different person from within this dynamic, ongoing balance of earth, air, fire, and water that is our body, and then whatever is inside. Whatever you call that thing, the soul, the spirit, the Buddha nature, whatever that is. It's fluid and dynamic. Mostly it operates out of our control. All I had to do was to be told that the federal security agents were coming, and the federal police are very impressive characters. I mean, they're big men, armed, and I look up like this to them, and they were very polite, and they were very professional. But with that attitude towards offending my sense of self, right? Why were they looking at me like a criminal? And it was suddenly, I was not in control of my reactions. I wish I could say I'm just completely cool and chill with the whole thing. I wasn't. It was like, all right. And my t-shirt was soaking wet, with sweat. So here's the Bodhisattva who is able to control not only his body, but he's able to control, as it says, he's able to know and identify countless living beings' bodies. Now, the reason why he can do that is because he's determined to help. All of this experience is motivated by altruism, meaning a sense of unbeatable optimism and a wish to be of service. It's Bodhisattva's entire motive for religious, spiritual practice now is to serve, to be of benefit when needed, in a way that doesn't miss. Wisdom here is described as seeing past the surface, able to look at anybody, not just humans, not just people who he likes or he knows, but any living being, and be able to tell what their potential for awakening is, and then apply the appropriate remedy to help them wake up, help them expand their vision, expand the measure of their heart, understand who they are in the context of their community, and how to be better people, how to move into their potential. Okay, so that's where we are. Let's take a look. Disciples of the Buddha, the Bodhisattva further brings up the light of wisdom to teach living beings. That's what he's doing. Wisdom is described as a light. And I think maybe that's how it's experienced when your wisdom is working, is you see you're no longer in the dark. Okay? He is skillful at knowing the differences among the bodies of sentient beings, not just people, right? He is skillful at distinguishing among their bodies. He is skillful at contemplating their birthplaces. Oh my goodness. He can tell where you came from. He appears to them as is appropriate to teach them and bring them to maturity. Okay. Now I have a here.
Yes.
Try not to move so I appear less ghost-like. Jin Chuan, do you have a comment?
No, this is Jerry. Pastor, if you show
Hi,
both,
Jerry.
if you show both English and Chinese, the text become too small. So if you can
okay.
show just one language.
Do one or the other, huh? Okay, let's do that. Here we go. Click it there. There, how's that? Big, huh? All right. Okay, I'm finding a photograph here that I want to share with everybody. Not for the squeamish, mind you. One of the joys of being here in Benogan is the ability to observe the life cycles and social dynamics of the critters in the Benogan bush, Queensland bush. I grew up in the Great Lakes of northwestern Ohio, the Midwest, and the animals there don't look anything like the animals in Australia, I have to say the least. And these are one of the most fascinating things is that the animals here, because Australia has the lowest population density of major first world countries, that's to say more space around every individual. So the animals here are relatively undisturbed. And we're talking millions of years, right? So this is the way things have been done forever and forever here. And here's a critter who came last night. This is Pauline the possum. And Pauline is Sam and I were walking by, and she is completely unafraid of us because we knew her when she was in her mother's pouch, her marsupials. She's her brushy-tailed possum. And so she grew up from the time she first popped out and was on mom's back. She saw her mom taking food from us. And so she grew up knowing that we're a source of food. So, you know, humans are not only not a threat, they're welcome. And so I haven't seen her for 6 months, and put some food out. There she was. And so happy to see the two of us. I'm told that cherry tomatoes are the hot item for possums these days. They're in season. Ooh, I love those cherry tomatoes. So living beings' bodies, that particular body is a furry body, right? Now, if I were a python, that would be food. If I were a carpet python, I would look at Pauline and go, yummy. You look good to me to eat. She is a mom to smaller possums. She's a mate to her spouse. She's the daughter of Pauline. This is Percy, and we saw Pauline was her mom. So there's one body, but I wanted to show you, the reason why I brought this along was, here's a very unusual situation. This is a wasp that eats spiders. It's a special spider-eating wasp. Leanne, do you know what they're called? There's a special variety of, it's a picture you all can't see, show it to you later. This is a wasp, it's a mud dauber wasp that makes a mud nest underneath the roof. And it has a huntsman spider heading for lunch. And the spider is fully as big as the wasp, but this is a wasp that eats spiders. And Australia is famous for large spiders. We'll show you all a picture in a minute. But here, this spider has been subdued by the wasp and is heading off for dinner. You know, she's no doubt going to feed it to her babies. And when you see a huntsman spider, they're tremendous critters. They're adapted to their environment. They're, you know, fast. They're hard to catch if you're trying to catch one. And if you're an insect, huntsman spiders are going to devour you. But this is a wasp that is specially adapted for eating spiders. And here this landed right in front of me, and I thought, wasps don't look like that. Where did the wasp get 8 extra legs? Turns out the wasp is carrying the spider home, having stunned it, you know. And it's like, I'm watching this drama unfold, and I'm thinking, living beings' bodies. Bodies of living beings. I'm looking, you know, if you see a huntsman spider, it's mostly predator. Pretty much they are so fast and they're so, you know, good at catching things that you don't think of them as being prey. But the wasp saw this by, oh, good, you know, yummy. My kids will love you. You know, I'm taking you home for dinner. Would you like to come with me for dinner? We're having you for dinner. So you think, my goodness. And I'm sitting on the porch and watching this life and death struggle happen right below me. And it's so, you know, I couldn't imagine such a thing if I were trying to write it out of my imagination, that here's a spider eating wasp. And there we are. You know, here's the wasp is pulling him up the leg. I couldn't catch it, they were too fast. But the wasp is hauling the spider up the table, right? So living in the forest like I do, in the bush, all of this incredible cycle of life is happening on all sides. And I'm thinking, if you were the spider, how do you get reborn in a spider's body? And if you're the wasp, you're the hunter, you're the killer, the assassin, the killer, the hunter, the eater, whatever. And you have now taken the life of a spider, which obviously is food. But what's your relationship with that arachnid now? And how do you leave the cycle of eating and being eaten to return, let's say, to the realm of a possum? Maybe, if you're considering a possum to be a higher form than, certainly bigger than these insects and arachnids. So then if you're a possum, possums are food to pythons, which are also right here in the bush. So everybody has our chance at life and the things we do while we're alive, and then we all have our time of transformation. The poet Gary Snyder said, becoming a Buddha is that your last incarnation in edible form. He said that if you can manifest this indestructible body, even the earth doesn't eat you any longer. The earth is made to eat the bodies of humans. We all feed the earth with our corpses when we die. Now this, mind you, this is grotesque language, right? But think about it. Here's the Bodhisattva who is so good at recognizing all the different forms that living beings come in, and furthermore, understanding how they got into those bodies and where they will go as they leave them and where they live. So what a joy to be in the Queensland bush, where the cycle happens quickly. We were just I was just in Berkeley last week, and remarking how sanitary everything is. There's just no spiders. We don't have spider-eating wasps in Berkeley, as far as I know. Or maybe they live in Oakland. I think that's probably the story. But there's just not as many. There are possums. We have possums, but not like that. Not possums you can walk up and pet, because they're happily eating the bird seed you put out for them. So here's our Bodhisattva, who is a little closer to the earth in watching these life cycles of all kinds of beings come and go and come and go. What happens next? Let's take a look. Here's our text. I'm going to slide the Chinese over. I'll read by myself this next passage. Let's see what happens next. 此菩萨于一三千大千世界随众生身性劫识别，以智光明普现受生，如是若二若三乃至百千乃至不可说三千大千世界随众生身性劫识别，普于其中实现受生。Okay, we're over maturity. I'm going to read 2 paragraphs. Let's see. Here we go. This Bodhisattva adapts himself to the differences in bodies, faith, and understanding on the part of its sentient beings anywhere throughout a threefold, large, thousand-world universe. Using the light of his wisdom, he appears and is reborn everywhere within it. He does the same thing, no matter whether it's 1, 2, 3, up to 100 or 1,000, 3,000, threefold, large, thousand-world universes. He may continue in that way until he appears in an ineffable number of universes. He adapts himself to the differences in their bodies, faith, and understandings, and appears to be reborn everywhere within those universes. All right. Again, challenge to your faith. If this is if this kind of language and imagery is new to you, then it's hard to find anything to compare to this. What in the world can you hold up as a yardstick to say, oh, that's similar to this or that? This is the description of a human being who has, you could say, if we use computer language, who has booted up programs that are resident on the hard drive of your wisdom, my wisdom, her wisdom, but rarely enabled, rarely booted up, right? What do you have on your computer hard drive? Do you have, let's say, for example, Adobe Photoshop? Let's use that. Even just say Microsoft Word. Okay. Most of us, my guess is, use probably maybe even a third of the potential of Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word over the years has become, some call it bloatware, right? Because they just throw everything in there and try to make it work. And it's so popular and so ubiquitous. People like it. It works well. But my goodness, all of those functions. For example, how many of us use the group? I don't even know the language. I don't use Microsoft Word, but the ability to share in real time. Anybody know what that's called? Where 2 or 3 people can work on the same document at the same time remotely.
OneDrive, Microsoft
OneDrive, is that what it's called? So that ability, so it used, now it's probably different than when I was a user of Microsoft Word, but there's all these functions for group use. And since it's all there, but how many of us know how to do it, right? All of the page layout functions of Microsoft Word. How many of us know how to create a document, a newsletter in Microsoft Word? And yet all that function is there. It's always been there since, what is it now, to 14.2 or something. I don't even know, I'm guessing where Microsoft Word is. But all those functions are there. We don't know how to do them, but they're waiting for us to boot them up, waiting for us to enable them, right? So the Avatamsaka Sutra is saying to us, yup, all of these abilities are there in every human being's potential, in every living being's nature, waiting to be booted up. This bodhisattva has done it. This is an 8th-stage bodhisattva who is so good at helping that what? Verb adapts himself. This bodhisattva adapts himself to the differences in bodies, looks and sees who's out there who needs help, who he can teach, who he can inspire, who she can influence, who she can model and then get to follow, right? And goes there. He looks at people's faith, at what they believe and what they understand. And then anywhere says throughout the universe, threefold large 1,000-world universe is Buddhist language, meaning many worlds, right? Not just our world. And using the light of her wisdom, she appears and is reborn there where that person is. How about that? That's what it says. Are we good? When you, let me see, Suzanne, when you hear that, Suzanne, I'm going to put you on the spot, Suzanne, when you hear that, I mean, you've been hearing Buddhists, you've been listening to the sutra for a long time. Does that make sense to you? It's like there's a microphone there somewhere.
Is she online?
Put her on the spot.
Jerry, is Suzanne online?
I may be calling on you next. Be careful. Suzanne, how do you react to that? Are you talking to me?
Suzanne's not here.
Wait, who am I looking at? That's not Suzanne.
There's
okay, I
there's
can claim
Valerie,
pixelation.
there's Valerie,
right?
Isabel, there's
Okay.
Yuan.
That looks like Suzanne Ying.
Honey.
Oh, you know who I'm looking at? I'm looking at, oh my goodness, Isabel. You know, you look like Suzanne. Okay, Isabel, who could be Suzanne but isn't. What do you think? Samyanga. Does this make sense to you? Bodhisattvas appearing in other bodies? You're going to say, Isabel isn't there either, right? Who am I looking at? What do you think about that? Does that make sense to you? Your first thought.
Can you repeat what you said? Bodhisattvas in different bodies?
Say again, didn't hear. A little louder.
Oh. I feel like I've heard this multiple of times. Bodhisattvas, it's kind of like bodhisattvas coming in different forms and coming
Right.
in, manifesting themselves in different forms and helping us in different ways. That's my first thought. That's how I would
Okay.
interpret.
So, I mean, you think it's possible?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
I've never seen
Hand the
it
microphone to your
myself.
mom. Pass it over to your mom. Valerie, does this make sense to you?
Yeah, I think there's a poster, is it of the Great Compassion Mantra, I've
Mhm.
seen it somebody's home, and then they have the different transformation bodies of Guan Bodhisattva. That was pretty cool. Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah,
So
I
for
guess I
both of
have the
you, it's like,
faith. Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I guess I have the faith that it's possible. But I mean, there's different people that come and help us in different forms or say something that might be helpful at that moment where we needed help. So I'm not sure what's behind the whole why that happened, but I can see that it's possible. Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you both for that. So, Jinchuan, what's your first thought as you hear the actual like mechanism whereby transformation bodies appear? Of course, you've been listening to this for some time, but this is like step by step by step. This is called transformation bodies, transformed bodies. How does it make sense to you?
Well, I guess, I mean, I think if I were to look at through my history, I probably would have a lot of doubts, let's say 15 years ago. I guess it's kind of strange now that, my kind of reality construct changed so much that this is kind of part of my reality. I don't know how to describe it. And so it's interesting to see that this is actually where the Bodhisattva develops this skill.
Right.
I want to say it that way. So it's, and there's
It's
a
kind
lot,
of the transformation factory, sort of.
yeah, and it's also not just random. It's so there's actually, like you said in the beginning, it's a kind of like a handbook or like a kind of a scientific manual in a way. So over all these last 7 grounds, the Bodhisattva have been doing a lot of hard work to be able to get to a place where they're actually emptied out so much of the self. Actually, this is where the self is completely, gone, and then these abilities manifest. So, clearly I don't interact with this, and I don't know if I've, from direct experience knowing somebody's a bodhisattva in any way, but I don't know. I think I probably trust the sutra more than I trust my own confused mind.
Okay, interesting point. Say again, you probably trust the sutra more than you trust
my own confused mind. I definitely know my
your own
mind is
confused
pretty
mind.
confused.
Yeah.
That much I know for sure. So
Yeah, okay. Okay, that's a helpful response. Anybody else in Berkeley got a comment or a reaction to what's going on here? Nope. Okay. So here's everybody here is sitting here thinking, don't call on me, don't call on me, please don't call. So what I'm looking at is I'm aware that there are people who are hearing the Avatamsaka Sutra for the very first time, and this is kind of like stepping into somebody's mathematics program at the level of advanced calculus, when you're basically going 2 + 2 = 4, I think, I've been told that 2 + 2 = 4. And somebody else is, doing differential equations, squaring the quadrants and things. So if you have come from a perspective entirely Theravadan, where Pali-based, then this will be fresh. This won't, there's no context for this, for other Buddhist forms. But in the Mahayana, there's a founding principle called the 3-body phenomena, I guess, the Trikaya, that says every Buddha, when you become your Buddha, the Buddha that you will become, at that moment, you have the function of 3 distinct bodies, they say. And they are the Dharma body, the reward body, retribution body, and then the transformed or the response bodies, they say. Mostly when people hear about the 3-body principle, they go, yeah, right, okay. And if they're really vigorous, they learn the 3, right? So the Dharma body, the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, the Nirmanakaya. And every time we do lunch, we go Gong Yang Qing Jing Fa Shen Pi Lu Zhe No Fo Yuan Man Bao Shen Lu Shen No Fo Qian Ba Yi Hua Shen Shi Jia Mo Ni Fo. Right there. We say the clear and perfect Dharma body of Vairochana, the round and full, the Dharma body, the round and full reward body of Nishan the Buddha, and the myriad transformation bodies of Shakyamuni Buddha. Bingo. Okay, our Bodhisattva here on the 8th stage has this function before Buddhahood. Coming up the ladder of the 10 stages, when you develop your inherent wisdom, when your nature has been purified, rubbed and polished, baked, steamed, boiled and fried and reborn in the mold, in the form of a bodhisattva at this level, you can do this. And I would say, it's not my state, I can't make the claim, but I would say, and so can you. Pointing my finger at everybody and pointing it at me. So can we. We can too. Why don't we know that? We haven't done the 7 previous stages of the bodhisattva path, like Dharma Master Jin Chuan mentioned. If you follow the 10 stages chapter, the bodhisattva stages 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 can't do this. But each progressive stage is another cleansing, another, if anybody makes bread, any bread bakers, right? You take the dough and you pound it on the breadboard, pound it down, and beat all the bubbles out of it. And then you add the raisins or walnuts or whatever, and you twist it into the various Christmas cookie shape to getting ready for Christmas. And out come gingerbread men and Christmas trees and snowmen, because you molded the dough into those forms. But you didn't start out with the gingerbread man or the cookie. You started out with flour and water and sugar and yeast or whatever, went into your particular recipe. And after a lot of pounding and bubble beating out of the dough, you could bake it and out came the cookies that were so tasty, right? Bodhisattva is doing the very same thing with his or her own nature. And the Avatamsaka Sutra says, this is the cookie you get. There are thousands and millions of cookies, and they go into every universe in response. Says the 3-body principle of the Buddha, the Trikaya principle, says part of Buddhahood is having not 1 body, not 2, but 3 functions. And that 3rd one, the transformation body, the nirmana, is this the nirmana or the sambhoga is the transformation? Nirmanakaya is, its function is, multiple. Many out there. So interesting, huh? And what's fun about, again, if you look at the Avatamsaka Sutra as a textbook, it's a how-to, it's a instruction manual for realizing this particular function of the 8th stage of the Bodhisattva path, which is the ability to send out multiple bodies in response. One huge piece of it that I want to emphasize is it's all motivated by compassion. The reason for doing this is because somebody oughta. Somebody's gotta, right? There's too much misery out there. This bodhisattva is now able to help in a way that we can only imagine. The joy of giving Christmas presents, if you're the dad or the mom, remember how much fun it was to go shopping for the bike or the dollhouse or the chemistry set or the skateboard, and knowing how your kid's face was going to light up. How many people open your presents at night, Christmas Eve? Any Christmas Eve present openers? No, Christmas Day, huh? How many, anybody? Christmas? You're all Buddhists. We don't do Christmas, Dharma Master. Yeah, right, okay. So we were always Christmas morning, and it's amazing how many, Doug Powers is a Christmas Eve guy, so his family always does it at night. Anyway, the joy of the parents waiting for the anticipation of the kids' happiness when they pull the wrappings off, and there's that wonderful skateboard or puppy or skateboard on a puppy, puppy on a skateboard. No, that's sorry. Have you seen Oscar the skateboarding bulldog? Check out the bulldog on a skateboard on YouTube. It's hilarious. So yeah, and imagine the Bodhisattva's joy able to respond. You think of Guanyin Bodhisattva with 1,000 hands and eyes. Each one of those hands is there to give a hand when needed. And that must be joyful. All right. Let's do one more chunk of our text. Let's see here. We have him appearing as is appropriate. Let's see. He appears as reborn. Right. Okay. We'd had ineffable numbers. The Avatamsaka is always multiple. Right? He appears in an inexpressible number of universes. So is that hyperbole or is that the way it is? Okay, one more paragraph. Here we go. Because, I'm going to do the Chinese, sorry. 此菩萨成就如是智慧故，于依佛刹起身不动，乃至不可说佛刹众灰中喜现起身。Because the Bodhisattva accomplishes wisdom such as this, his body within a single Buddha land rests unmoving. Yet he makes his body appear within inexpressibly many Buddha lands assemblies. Okay, more miraculous. Our textbook sutra, our how-to manual says, furthermore, the Bodhisattva is sitting there unmoving and seemingly contradictory while he sits one place in a single Buddha land, it's to say in a location. He can make that transformation thing happen in inexpressibly many Buddha lands assembled. You see him in one place, and yet he's actually in many places at once. Okay, so there you go. Either you go, when you read this, what's your possible responses? One possible response is, oh, come on. You can be totally incredulous. Don't believe it, right? Another response would be something like, that's outrageous. Why those numbers? You take it, you don't doubt it, but you question the quantity. It's just because the conscious rational mind has a hard time fitting those quantities in there. Another option is the one that I like, that I'm comfortable with, which is there's more to learn. I don't have to say true or false based on my own experience because my knowledge is limited. And so you can say, I will, my response is to withhold judgment, to suspend my skepticism and withhold judgment until I know more. And like Jin Chuanshi said, rather trust the sutra than my own confusion. One thing I can be sure of is how little I know. I'm aware of that. Whether or not I can verify the Avatamsaka Sutra is absolutely true, that's another story. But certainly I have no doubt that my knowledge of it is limited, and yet I like the feeling of the expanding of my categories. That's very neat. I wonder how that works. So my scientific curiosity about the potential of humanity is tweaked by that, is piqued, and I want to know more. So that's another option. What did Lao Tzu say? He said about the Tao. Lao Tzu says, he said there are different potentials of people. He said the people of highest potential hear it and immediately want to put it into practice. people of middling capacities half believe and half doubt. And people of lower capacities laugh at it and call it foolish. He said if they didn't call it foolish, it wouldn't be the Tao. Said Lao Tzu. So anyway, okay. Another thought that occurred to me. We were explaining the Sixth Patriarch Sutra yesterday, and the Sixth Patriarch was finishing his conversation with a monk named Zhichuan. Jinchuan and Jinwei Shi explained it last week, and it was my turn yesterday. And he, Zhicheng, the monk who was being taught, was really capable. He was ready, ripe for the teaching. And it just took a little push by the Sixth Patriarch to get Zhicheng to a whole nother level of awareness. And so he, the sutra describes how the Sixth Patriarch woke him up, right? And Zhicheng wrote a poem in response to demonstrate his new awareness. And sure enough, he got it. Zhicheng really got it. And before, he'd been studying for 9 years with Shanxiu, his former teacher. And because Shanxiu himself didn't have that holistic insight, he still had a binary dual understanding of the universe. So, of course, the student wasn't able to surpass the teacher with that background. He met the Sixth Patriarch, and in one conversation, the Sixth Patriarch went poof, pushed him, and Zhicheng was able to, they say, break open the barrel of black lacquer, Hei Qi Tong Jiao, right? And he woke up. So the Sixth Patriarch at that point says in 2 talks, he says this wonderful expression of just the whole gist of what he's been trying to teach all along consistently. And as I read it, I thought, my goodness, he's describing the potential for humanity. This is what people can do. And often people will ask me, why bother? You yourself, you've been a monk for 40 years. Why? Can't you think of something else to do? You sit there like a lump on a log, and what do you get out of that? That's the phrase. What do you get out of that? And in the Sixth Patriarch's statement yesterday, it's like, that's what you get out. I didn't prepare it for that. I'll go there. Here's the Sixth Patriarch. And I'll just find that quote, because it's so, I read it this morning in our meditation class here in Gold Coast as well. So folks who were in that class get to hear it again. Oh boy. So here we go. Let's see. Take me just a second to dig it up. The reason why I brought it up was it was, I think we love the Sixth Patriarch Sutra because it's relatable. We can relate. He's recognizable. And sometimes, the Avatamsaka Sutra, without building a big bridge over, that's amazing. To say the Bodhisattva appears in countless worlds, to teach in bodies that, based on people's needs. It's like, really? That's so outrageous a claim. And yet you think, yeah, that when, if you break it down and chew on it a bit, it kind of, yeah, I can see how, I get a little glimmer of how that I might relate to that. Here we go. Sixth Patriarch Sutra is, he's a guy. He was illiterate. And he's kind of a little bit goofy, as he's always responding to different people in different ways. He's a joker. He's a poet, spoken word poetry. Here's the Sixth Patriarch's comment. He said, Only when you understand there is nothing to attain can you set up all the myriad teachings. If you understand this, you're embodying the Buddha. It's also called Bodhi Nirvana and liberated knowledge and views. Those who see their essential nature can set that up or not as they choose. They come and go freely, unhindered, spontaneous. You ever met anybody who had that quality of you? Everything they do and all their words are appropriate, timely, and according to need. Wherever and however they appear, they never leave their inherent nature. Okay, that was it. Somebody says to you, what do you get out of that? You can say, when my essential nature makes no mistakes, I never meet any obstacles. I'm not disturbed. I'm not confused. Wisdom oversees and lights up my every thought. I am removed from the superficial appearances of things. I'm independent and free, absolutely everywhere and anywhere. What is there to set up? So, that's what you get out of it. And the question is, what is my nature capable of? What is my potential? And I often ask my college students, kind of trying to jar their thinking processes into action. Teaching undergraduates, I get the 19 and 20-year-olds mostly. And you can go through your college education without doing a lot of independent gear turning, thinking on your own. A large part of it is simply repeating what you've been fed, and that's all right, as long as you absorb some of it. But I think a lot of education is set up so that you simply swallow whole what you've been fed. You don't actually get any mental nutrition from it. So when I meet these 20-year-olds, I like to challenge their awareness and say things like, what is your highest potential? What can you be? What's the best you possible? And usually there's something, kind of a cliche answer for a while, but then it only takes one or two to actually, and the time has to be right. It has to be appropriate, the right time, and say the right thing. And they, well, not what it used to be. I kind of used to think I was just kind of a clone of my parents. And then I realized that I didn't entirely agree with a lot of the things that they thought, or I didn't want to be, because I could see the compromise my dad made. He settled for much less than he dreamed of, just probably because he wanted to take care of me and my mom. So I saw that I didn't want to just settle, And then, the next step is to get the gratitude and the appreciation for Dad having settled, compromised on his dreams just to keep the family going. But there's that sense of, well, I don't know what my potential is. What is my potential? Then, as soon as that question spontaneously arises in the mind of a 20-year-old who's in the class to discover other stories, that's when education happens, right? And the other useful thing that, along with jarring this kind of getting the oiling the gears of the heart. I'm pointing at my head. The Chinese would point to the heart. Getting the young people to question and to think for themselves is the awareness that most of what we know comes in the form of stories. And the stories we believe are the ones we see at first our parents, but then our friends actually living out. Okay. So stories. What stories have I been told? And this is true from big stories to today's news. The big story would be who's in charge? Who is the religious authority? Who says, this is how heaven and earth is made, how it's set up. This is how the world works, right? who do you hear saying that, and who do you watch other people like obeying without question? Usually it's some male authority figure, not always. Sometimes it's a female authority figure, maybe grandma, maybe a woman pastor, or in days before it was the medicine woman, who healed illness. She had the power. Or the person who puts food in your plate. Maybe she's the one who says so. So who says so? Who tells you how it is? And that would be, a big story. The little stories are, we've recently come to live with unisex bathrooms, right? How long ago did that happen? You notice? See, in public buildings. I was in a restaurant the other day for an offering for lunch, and bathroom was unisex. And that was unthinkable just a short time ago. New story, okay? That we're seeing things differently. Okay, currently in the United States, there's an awareness of Me Too, of people talking about being abused, and people talking about having sexual aggression from one gender upon the other. That's no longer okay. That's in the news now, and very much in our awareness. And just, I think my father's generation, the husband was the absolute autocrat, the boss, and the woman's job was to submit. That's a historically, traditionally established way for male and female relations to happen inside the family. Well, where are we going? Different stories. Different stories are told. That's how we know up from down, left from right, are stories, right? And the stories that we buy, we don't always buy every story we hear. The ones we absorb and say, this is part of my life, are the ones that are backed up by personal virtue, right? We will listen to that story because that person has a integrity. They've got some chi, some energy, some light behind their words, or even no words behind their actions. We will follow somebody who we fear, and they will follow us until our strength is reduced, until we're not as strong as they are. Or we'll follow somebody who moves us by our feelings, because this person just rings true. That's good, that's right, that's true. I'll follow that person. And that doesn't necessarily require words, right? So anyway, when I talk to the young people, I say, what stories have you heard about the way things work? And what's your role in those stories? Have you identified how you learn as a story, right? That's very helpful. And I was raised Protestant Methodist in Middle America, and that's in the religious authority figures were monotheistic. There was no choice other than that one story. And if I had stayed in Toledo was a fairly cosmopolitan place. We had lots of Lebanese friends. Danny Thomas, the actor, was from Toledo, and our closest big city was Detroit. Detroit has very, very large Islamic population, and so we had lots of Middle Eastern restaurants, and kebab was a food that you could find, and olives and things. So, in Toledo, it's a tiny city, it's a medium-sized city. So but there was an opportunity to expand a horizon a little bit, but if it's still in the Abrahamic tradition, it's still monotheistic, right? Only when I studied the religions and thoughts of Asia, Asian cultures, particularly Chinese, did I discover that there were other stories being told on the planet by perfectly reasonable, virtuous people, and that I actually had a choice. It wasn't the case that only one story held value. Can you believe in two stories about the creation of the universe simultaneously? If you're a Jewish astrophysicist, you both believe in the Big Bang and also the Torah, right? And if you're a Jubu, you're a Jewish astrophysicist who practices Buddhist meditation, maybe you can hold multiple stories about the creation of the universe. There are multiple Big Bangs happening in every new thought. So interesting, just to tweak a little bit, to poke around at the sureness by which we reject the story of the sutra, doubt the story of the sutra, or fully accept the story of the sutra, being told in our Avatamsaka Sutra, or maybe we suspend our judgment and say there's more to learn. This is a fascinating account. And it's only because Master Shren Hua took 9 years to explain it, and insisted that we translate it every night into English, and that we are now retranslating it and looking into it. Do we know this story is out there, that this exists to benefit us? And by golly, it is good. It's good to the core in the sense of altruistic, wholesome. There's no harm in the sutra whatsoever. So that being said, oh, you know what? It's Christmas Eve. Can I tell my Christmas Eve story before we quit here? I have my, this is the annual story. I think Jin Chuan has probably heard it. How many years you've been listening to me lecture on sutras and Christmas? I don't know, Jin Weisher, I don't know if you've heard this story before. My Gold Mountain Christmas Eve story. It just occurred to me. I think I'll, instead of singing you the Buddhist Christmas carols, I think I'll tell you the Christmas story instead. I actually had got my Christmas carols. We'll do one Christmas carol. Here we go. I was told that O Little Town of Bethlehem is an American Christmas carol. I didn't know that. I didn't realize there were American Christmas carols. I thought Christmas carols were Christmas carols. Okay, so let's do Silent Mind. Ready? Don't have to put your palms together. It's okay. Here we go. Silent mind, holy mind, all is calm, all is bright. Deep vipassana thoughts rise and fall, with clear insight detached from them all. Sit in heavenly peace, sit and contemplate. There we go. Enough of that cruel and unusual on Christmas Eve. Okay, here's my Christmas story, and I'm sticking by it. It was an Amitabha Buddha recitation week at Gold Mountain Monastery. The year was 1973. And this was my very first week in the monastery at Gold Mountain. I was a graduate student at UC Berkeley, and I'd taken my Christmas vacation from graduate study to go to Gold Mountain for an Amitabha session. Now, I had, along with my brother and my sister, a Christmas stocking that my mother gave me. Christmas stockings are, you know, you don't wear them on your feet. They're big Christmas stocking, red felt with white trim and a Santa Claus on it. And every Christmas, this Christmas stocking, my brother Steve, my sister Liz, and I would put our Christmas stockings on the mantle over the fireplace and hang them up and come down in the morning, and there would be little things in the Christmas stocking. There would be candy canes and keys to the BMW, and no, kidding about that. And you know, there would be little rolls of film if you're a photographer, and maybe a Swiss Army knife, something like that. Nice little things they were called stocking stuffers. And so I had kept mine when I'd come out to California from Ohio. I brought my Christmas stocking along. It had my name on it, Chris, right? My name, Christopher. And so I had it, and I thought, boy, you know, I'm going to be over at the Buddhist place over Christmas, and shoot, what am I going to do? I've never passed a Christmas without my Christmas stocking. I think I was 22 years old at the time. And so, okay, well, I'll take it over to Gold Mountain with me. So I'm unpacking my suitcase, my backpack, and here's my Christmas stocking. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, this doesn't really belong here. It's Christian. This is the wrong team for the retreat, So what am I going to do? Okay. So go to sleep. It's now Christmas morning, first day of the session, and it's 3:30. Bonk, 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 bonk. Right? We hear the sounds in the hallway. The wake-up boards. Time to roll out of your sleeping bag. And so I wake up and here's my Christmas stocking. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. Yeah, well, I told my story wrong. This is a rusty story. It was the night before. So spin it back a little. You put your Christmas stocking out the night before, right? So it was, I had undid my backpack and here was my stocking. And I thought, what do I do with it? And I thought, well, since I'm a Buddhist now, I guess I don't need this anymore. What I'll do is I'll just put it on my door outside and let the other lay people take it and throw it in the garbage because it's Christian. I can't myself do it. I can't throw it away. So I'll let them take care of it. They'll, I'll probably come out in the morning. It'll be in pieces on the ground. So went to sleep, heard the wooden fish, dunk, 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 dunk. Got my robe on, it's cold to go mountain, put my parka on and opened my door and looked around the ground for the Christmas stocking. And I looked over and here it was on the door filled with recitation beads, little Buddha images, Chinese white rabbit candies, and a little sutra, all stuffed in, and a note signed by everybody. So I, took it in, and I went downstairs and came around to get to my position to begin morning chanting, and here's Master Hua standing right in my way, and he said, "Merry Christmas." So that was whoa, these Buddhists are really compassionate. That's what compassion is bodhisattvas manifest in whatever body is needed to take others across. So based on their faith and understanding, they use what people can understand to take them the next step. So anyway, there we go. So we'll proceed. I'm going to have to translate more of our sutra. We're almost done with our available translation, but next week, Jin Chuan-Shi, do you know where we will be in Taiwan next week? Will we be in some event? I suspect that I will not be able to join next week. What have you got there?
I have to look. If you give me 2 minutes, I'll find it.
Okay. Do we want to talk about announcements for Berkeley? What have we got? Jin Fosher, Jin Weisher, do you have anything to tell everybody about coming events?
Jinwei speaking. So the next Saturday there will be the last Saturday what we are practicing in the morning, right? This will be last Fachwei in this year, and it will be the break for actually whole January, if I'm not mistaken, right? So basically it will be the sutra lectures in the evening each Saturday, but it is no Fachwei, not open lunch in the morning the next 3 Saturdays, and we will do Chan here in the BBM. And I think it's the next Sunday 7th, it will be the walking recitation, Amitabha day. and basically it's just it. And I think January 10th, Stephen Tanner will start his class on Wednesday, 7:30, and for Thursday Insight Meditation, we have still the classes going on Thursday, and all schedule will return in the beginning of February. So this is what will be happening here.
Okay, sounds good.
And yes, and also we have.
Anybody? Yep, go ahead.
I want to add in the City of 10,000 Buddhas, 31st of December will start Amitabha session, 7-day recitation session. And follow that will be the Chan session, 3 weeks of Chan. So all this information you can find in the website, cttbusa.org.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Any questions about the schedule? Okay. Jinchuan, you want to repeat for everybody what that means for Berkeley Monastery?
Berkeley Monastery.
So no
Yes.
activities.
So for the upcoming month, in January, we will not have any activities on Saturday morning, and we won't also
Okay,
have the
everybody
Saturday
follow?
lunch. But we'll still have the regular daily meditation, as well as the evening sutra lecture. So people are welcome to come for those. But we won't have the regular Saturday Dharma assembly and lunch. So that's pretty much what that means. So all of January,
Right.
I think, if you look at the January
Right.
dates, it's like the 3rd.
I just wanted everybody to hear it again because that's different, right? So Saturday, no events during the day as our usual.
Yeah.
We're going to let everybody do the sessions of Buddha recitation and 3 weeks of Chan at CTTB, but not at BBM. Okay, what have you got for us in Taiwan next week?
So what I see is that day is the day in Hualien. I think
Okay.
they're doing. I think they're having a Buddha. Is it some kind of Kaiguan?
Yeah, we are going to dedicate a medicine Buddha image.
So
Kaiguan.
So that day is in Hualien in Taiwan.
Okay, so we'll have Jinfo Shi, or who we have scheduled to lecture?
Jing Fosher, and I don't know, somebody's going to be translating for him. But yes, Jing Fosher will be lecturing next week, actually for
Okay,
the next
Jinfo Shi
2
next
weeks
week.
at least.
Then we'll aim for the following week, and in February, in middle of January, I'll be back. This seems to work well, and once we can figure out how to get online in our brand new Buddha hall, I won't turn into a pixelated ghost as often. Can't guarantee it won't happen, but it won't be as often. Okay, great. So can we transfer the merit and thank everybody for joining? Happy Christmas Eve. Go home and get ready to know the joy of giving. Now here's our text to write dedication merit. Oh, I'm going to pull it up. Wait a minute. I thought I had it and I don't. Sorry. Hold on. If you're there in the Buddha hall, you've got it on your songbook. Here we go. There it is. Okay, dedication of merit requires you to actually make a wish, send out your goodness, and let's experiment and see how the guitar sounds. I've got it here ready, and it may work on GoToMeeting, it may not. We'll see how it goes. So please make that wish. live in thee. Our minds as one and great with love. Share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see, our hands and hearts can find in giving unity. May our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts open, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and may all become compassionate and okay, I'd like to express my gratitude to everybody on both ends in Berkeley and here in the Gold Coast who made this webcast possible. Pretty inconceivable that we've been able to do it again yet another week. And look forward to joining you here online for more explanations of the Flower Garland Sutra next month. Omi Tofo. Bye, everybody. Jinchuan Shi, do you want to lead everybody to bow?
Okay, will do.
Okay, Omi Tofo. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay. So we'll wait for the screen to go up. Actually, we have also, you can say a Christmas gift if people would like to accept it. But some people had very small guanyin images that kind of like open up. And it's actually fairly nice. So if you're interested in requesting or taking one home with you, we have a box of them actually that somebody had. So if you're interested, it's actually in the dining hall right now. I think we have something. So if people are, we can take a look. So it's like a small golden guanyin image that's in a box. So it's good for traveling. Yes. Yeah, also more calendars. So if people have not received a calendar yet for the upcoming year, for DRBA, it's a really nice calendar with mementos of Master Hua, because this year is Master Hua's, or 2018 is Master Hua's centennial, meaning he was born in 1918, so now it's 2018. So Jingwei Shu will bring both items in the back here, and you can take a look. Okay, so we can bow together and then